Hello, how are you all doing in this pandemic? I hope you all staying safe and healthy. I can't believe I was gone for more than 1 month. A lot has happened, but now I am back with a new video. From now on, I'll try to upload one video every week, if not every other week. In this video, I'll talk about how to increase vocabulary. But before we do it, I'll show you a couple of pictures of mine. As you all know, COVID-19 has made many people try new things for the very first time in their lives. And I also have tried a couple things as well. And one of them is a haircut. I gave myself a haircut about a month ago, and my son kind of liked it as well. So he asked me to give him a haircut. And my hair has grown quite a lot since that time, so I might have to give myself another haircut. What was one thing that you tried for the first time in your life because of this pandemic? Why don't you write it down in the comments below so that I can also see it? Now let's go back to how to increase vocabulary. How's your vocabulary doing? Is it increasing or decreasing? What are the new words or phrases that you have recently picked up? And what is it that you are doing in order to increase your vocabulary? If you are not picking up any new words or phrases, and if you're not doing anything about your vocabulary, maybe your English is not improving, nor your ability to speak English. I recently had a conversation with my son, Moses, who was born and brought up here in the United States. He used a word that I wasn't familiar with. And the word he used was sardonic, which I was not familiar with. So I looked up the word in a dictionary. According to the online Merriam-Webster dictionary, sardonic is defined as disdainfully or skeptically humorous. The second meaning of sardonic is derisively mocking. And the example expression that was provided by the dictionary was a sardonic comment. So you can say, he made a sardonic comment. I looked up other dictionaries in order to find out more expressions and more sentences. So a couple of expressions are sardonic smile, sardonic humor, and sardonic wit. And two sentences that I came across are, Bob Dahl is bitter and sardonic. And the other sentence is, Sedaris's sardonic humor and incisive social critique have made him one of NPR's most popular and humorous commentators. And the other word that I picked up recently is spiel, S-P-I-E-L. S-P-I-E-L is defined as a voluble line of often extravagant talk. And a pitch, the word pitch is similar to this word spiel. And this word was used by one of my church members who recently graduated from college. So these two words I haven't had a chance to use in public. I'm sure that I'll be able to use them either in writing or speaking. In my book, Daring to Speak, the 22 ideas to improve your ability to speak English, I talk about how to improve your vocabulary. In chapter 7, I talk about 5 things that you can do in order to acquire good vocabulary. The first thing that I do in order to expand my vocabulary is to jot down or make a mental note of a new word or phrase that I come across, either over the radio or in daily conversation or in reading written materials. And sometimes you might feel a little ashamed asking someone about the meaning of a word. I would say, don't feel that way. There's no shame asking about the meaning of a word or a phrase if you are not familiar with that word or phrase. So that is the one thing that I do. The second thing that I try to do in order to acquire good vocabulary is to look up a word that I'm not familiar with in a dictionary when I come across it. Well, let's say I'm reading a book and I come across a new word. I would either highlight it or underline it so that I will be able to come back to it later. So I keep going. And the first thing, as everybody would do, is to guess the meaning of the word by its context. So I usually get the meaning of the word right from the context, but I keep going. And then later, after I'm done reading, I come back to those words and make sure that I look them up in a dictionary so that I could add those words and or phrases to my vocabulary. The third thing that I do when I study vocabulary is to use many different tools, such as flashcards. I use flashcards. So I jot down the words. In this case, these are Spanish words. So I jot down the word, and then in the back, I write down the meaning of the word. I do the same thing with English vocabulary. And I also use index cards. And also I use this little notebook or even big notebook. And I jot down the words and the meanings, as well as the sentences, the expressions or sentences that help me to use them in right context. So not only do I use these flashcards, index cards, and little notebook, I also record these words and phrases in my own voice. So I do this on a regular basis so that I could review the words or phrases that I pick up. And it's always important to remember that you have to use these words or phrases as early and as often as possible. Without using them, it's easy for you to forget them. So you have to consider what would be the best way for you to make these things stick in your memory. For me, I try to use them as much as possible with my son and with anybody that I come into contact with. Because after all, your brain remembers these things when you use them, especially when you try to think of the words or phrases, you study them. And also, as a Christian, I pray daily. And when I go to early morning prayer meeting in my church, I try to pray in English. I sometimes pray in Korean. A lot of times I pray in English, and I try to use the words and phrases that I picked up the other day or not long ago in my prayer to God, because I want them to stick in my memory. And also, I try to use them in my writing as well. You have to be proactive in using these newly learned vocabulary words or phrases. When you write, your brain also remembers and reinforces the words and phrases that you pick up. In the case of the two words that I mentioned earlier, sardonic and spiel, I haven't had a chance to use them yet, but I try to use them in the future. So what is the best way for you to make these words or phrases stick in memory? And you will know yourself, because we all learn differently. And the way we memorize things also varies. So I hope that you will be able to find the best way to remember things and to learn. Also, don't be afraid of making mistakes. The more mistakes you make, the better, and the more expressions you might be able to end up using. Because after all, mistakes reinforce our memories. I remember a time when I tried to use the expression live from hand to mouth. I was having a conversation with my university English conversation professor over dinner, and I wanted to use that expression. So I summoned my courage and I used it. And immediately I heard her laugh, and she asked me, "You mean you live from hand to mouth, not from mouth to hand?" I ended up using wrong expression, but that experience helped me to memorize the expression correctly. So live from hand to mouth, not live from mouth to hand. It's just one example of how our mistakes that are funny, and we might feel a little ashamed of making that mistake, but then it's nothing. As non-native speakers, we ought to make mistakes, and I encourage you to keep trying to use newly learned expressions, phrases, and words, and that will help you better speak and better communicate with others. The fourth thing that I do in order to increase my vocabulary is to study high-level words, such as SAT words and GRE words. I know for some people this is quite a challenge, and that is why they tend to shy away from using them or studying them. But personally, I have seen these words appear in many places, such as news articles, radio news, academic journals, books, and also in academic and formal settings. Native speakers of English tend to use high-level words or academic words in academic settings or in formal settings. So why not studying them in order for you to understand when native speakers use these high-level words? I remember a time when I was studying for GRE exam, and some people around me told me that it's no use studying those high-level words because you won't run into them. But I disagreed on the inside because I knew I had seen them appear in many places, as I said earlier. But I respected their opinion, and I didn't say anything out of respect for them. But I pushed myself to continue to study those words, and my vocabulary has expanded quite a lot and is still expanding because I continue to study difficult words, high-level words, whenever I come across them. And also, just with anything, you have to use them, put them to practice. If you are not putting those new words or high-level words to practice, either in speaking or in writing, those high-level words will be forgotten easily and readily. So I encourage you to embrace the challenge to study these high-level words and also use them as often as possible and as early as possible, because eventually, as I told you, they will pay off. And the level of vocabulary that you use always leaves behind you the level of education and also the level of interest that you have to others. The fifth and last thing that I do in order to increase my vocabulary is to try to read broadly and voraciously. You might have heard the saying, leaders are readers. Readers have the potential to become good leaders, but all good leaders have the commonality of reading broadly. Reading broadly and voraciously not only helps you expand your vocabulary, but it also makes you very knowledgeable about diverse topics. Gaining knowledge through reading or other sources not only illuminates and educates you, but it also creates in you a desire for more. The more you read, the more you realize that there is still so much that you do not know. But as you continue to read, you can get to a level where you can see a convergence of knowledge. After all, knowledge begets knowledge, and this can happen through reading. Through reading, you can travel in time and space and meet people in the past as well as in the present that you've never met before. If you don't mind going to the trouble of studying and continuously expanding your vocabulary, you will surely have the joy of reading. And in the process, you can also gain a vast knowledge through which you can serve and lead others. But there's one caveat that you need to remember. Unless you use this newly gained knowledge through teaching it or sharing it, this newly gained knowledge can be forgotten. Likewise, this newly acquired vocabulary words and phrases can be forgotten easily if you do not continue to use them. So there are two things for you not to forget these newly acquired vocabulary words and phrases. One, you can review them on a regular basis until they stick with you. Two, you can express these newly acquired vocabulary words and phrases either in speaking them or in writing them so that they can stick with you. That is why it's important for you to find a place where you can practice speaking and using these vocabulary words and phrases. If not a place, you need to find a speaking partner with whom you can practice. And find a speaking partner, that's the topic that I'll address in my next video. Next time, when I come back, I'll come back with my son Moses, who will be my speaking partner. Until then, stay safe and healthy, and keep daring to speak.